Sorry guys, bear with me. I do have some ambient noise here. I got the door closed, but I do have some family members in the other room that are having a discussion. You might hear them in the background from time to time, so don't be alarmed.
Don't be alarmed, we're Negroes.
We're talking about the Canon R7, this bad boy right here. But not only are we talking about the Canon R7, we are talking about the Tascam CA-XLRd2. I'll put it closer. I got to kind of angle it because the light is right here. But so I know a lot of people that get tired of seeing videos where, you know, people are just sitting in front of the camera and they're talking. Hopefully I can segue into some footage of me out and about, you know, on the streets or doing different things with this camera. But if I can't, you'll see me talking this whole time. But hopefully I'm not. Canon R7, to me, when I look at the body, I think of a Rebel series camera. And I'm assuming that's kind of what they were going for, because if they were going for something similar to the 90D, then you'd have the LCD screen at the top. You'd still have some extra functions on here that the 90D has, but this one doesn't. This one is closer to like R6 and T7i. And by the way, the camera I'm actually recording on right now is the Canon 800D, which is the equivalent to the Rebel T7i. The 800D is just the international version, but the T7i and 800D are both the same camera. I've used the T7i before, the actual branded Rebel T7i, and now I actually have an 800D. I think the R7 is much like the T7i, but also what the Canon 90D should have been. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that one of the cameras I really liked a lot and I used a lot at the beginning, well, not at the beginning, but all through 2020 up until the R5 and R6 came out, I used the Canon 90D primarily on this channel. And with the addition of the R6 and R5, I did a video talking about how the R6 and the 90D were similar because they both filmed in 4K IPB. The only difference was that the R6 had dual card slots, a 20 megapixel sensor, and it filmed in C-Log. So it was like the 90D was like the baby brother to the R6. For what it was, it still was a pretty good crop sensor camera. And then the R6 kind of just doubled all the features of the 90D per se. So now this does have IBIS, which is very amazing. It's got IBIS, it's got dual card slots. You probably want to get UHS to V60 SD cards. Typical things: articulating screen, HDMI input, USB Type-C, headphone jack, mic jack. The thing about it, the HDMI is still, they keep throwing that micro HDMI on there. Honestly, I don't understand, because even the T7i is a mini HDMI, which is bigger than a micro. And I'd much rather see a mini HDMI or full size, but I would be more okay with a mini. I'm not quite understanding how the micro is so much better. Maybe there's some technical reason why micro keeps getting put on Canon cameras. But that's one of the biggest pet peeves I have, is the micro HDMI. Also, one of the additions to the R7 is that it has a multi-interface hot shoe. So the Sony cameras have a multi-interface hot shoe, and they have what you call the K3M XLR adapter that goes on, made by Sony. And I think they offer or they supply a mic with it when they sell it, right? So Sony's been doing this for a while. Canon just now started doing it. They released the R3 with this feature. The R5c has this feature as well. And now the R7 has it. One of my questions was, since this is a crop sensor and it has a multi-interface hot shoe, is the hot shoe going to be limited to all the other accessories, or will it be able to take advantage of the Tascam CA-XLRd2 and get XLR inputs and work with the R7. And originally when I plugged it in, it needed a firmware update. It wasn't communicating right, and so I thought it didn't work. But there's a micro USB at the bottom that you can plug in to the computer and update it. So updated firmware, plugged it back in, perfect, worked amazing. It accesses the camera functions, and in the camera, what happens is once you plug it in, it has the left and right channel audio that it shows while it's, on your display. You plug this in, it changes from left and right to channel 1 and channel 2. Pretty dope, right? One of the things I do like is putting an EFS lens with this adapter and still being able to use the whole camera, which is amazing because right now, for instance, I'm using the 18-55, the most basic kit lens you can get for one of the cameras, especially crop sensor. I'm using it on the T7i or the 800D, but I'm going to pop it on this R7 to use the film, and I'm going to be able to use all the functions still, especially the 4K fine mode, which I was concerned about if it was going to work. And it does. It works. 4K 60 works. Every shooting mode with the EFS lens still works on this camera. So if you can only get the camera and you have an adapter already and you have a bunch of EFS lenses, you are good to go. The one cool thing about the R7, it does use the LPE6NH battery, which the 90D, the 80D, the R5, the R6, the R, they all use that battery. 5D Mark IV, all of them. And the R5c uses the LPN6H. With that battery, the R5c doesn't get 8K on that battery, so you have to use external power. But that's a whole nother topic we'll talk about at another time. But yeah, the LPE6NH is a really dope battery. It carries a lot of power for a long time, and this camera lasts quite a while on that battery. And speaking lasting quite a while, this camera doesn't have a record limit. So the R3 doesn't have a record limit. The R5c doesn't have a record limit, but also it's a cinema camera. And the R7 doesn't have a record time limit, and it's APS-C. Okay, so this is 12,800 ISO on the Canon EOS R7. So there's like a light right there. So it doesn't look too bad. I'm at 4.5 aperture because I'm using the 10 to 18 millimeter EFS lens with the EF to RF adapter. It's pretty nice, So some of the features, like the back, you have the dial that was normally down here is up here, right here. It does 4K external ProRes into the Atomos Ninja. So you have that option. The dual card slots are plus, 32.5 megapixel sensor, similar to the 90D, no top LCD screen. It does have a manual focus and autofocus switch right here, which I haven't quite understood why that's there yet, but I have to spend a little bit more time with it and maybe I'll figure it out. I didn't want to bloat this with stuff I didn't really know. I just wanted to talk about the things I do know. Clean HDMI out. You can't record internal at the same time as you record external. Okay, one of the great things about Tascam is that they developed a hot shoe interface for the Canon R7, R5c, and the R3. I used it with the R7 and it was fantastic. On many occasions, it was blowing my mind. But if you're using something like the Shure SM7B, you probably still want to plug in a cloud lifter or something like that. Right now, I'm using it with the Canon T7i, aka 800D. There's a little adapters that you could unscrew and bolt into the Tascam. The first adapter would be the interface that will let it sync to the R7. And then the second one is just a regular hot shoe mount that will let you attach it to any other camera and bolt it down like normal. But if you want to plug a mic into it, you can plug any mic into it that you want. Right now I have the Rode Video Micro and it's plugged into input 3. But if I wanted to use the XLR, I could still use the XLR. I wouldn't be able to get the power from the camera because it's not a compatible camera with the hot shoe interface. But there's an attachment that comes with it that takes AA batteries. So you can put rechargeable batteries, lithium batteries, alkaline batteries. They all work. So right now, that's what I'm doing. I'm using the Tascam CA-XLRd2 with the 800D T7i, and I have to output the audio out of this device into the camera's mic port, and this is what it sounds like. So yeah, tell me what you guys think. What does that sound like? Does it sound good? Does it sound bad? Could it be better? Could I get out this 104-degree heat in Texas weather? Yes, I can. Let's go, guys. I have 10 minutes left on the recording because the 800D still has a record limit, so I got to be conscious of that. It's essentially like building up a cinema camera. So if I get a shotgun mic right here, I have an APS-C cinema camera. It's just dope. So dope. So this is what it looks like. Adamus Ninja, XLR adapter, and Canon R7. What more could you want? I mean, you could want more, but do you really need it? You know what I'm saying? So I've been recording for like 30 minutes, so I'm gonna have to switch to the R7. If you're familiar with that look and that feel, and you're willing to upgrade, you don't upgrade to the 90D anymore. You upgrade to the R7. Unless, your budget can only afford a 90D. But in that case, if you can afford a 90D, but you really want an R system, you upgrade to the RP and get a whole full frame. The downside to the RP, even though it's a full frame, it uses the same battery that is in the T7i, which that battery doesn't have a very good battery life. And for them to put it in a mirrorless RF camera, I think was a bad move. That's the only mirrorless RF series camera I have not used, and primarily because of the battery life. Eventually I might get to the point of using it because it is a very affordable full frame camera. It's just I'm really picky about battery life.